What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL record prediction for the 2020 NFL regular season. This one is for the Buffalo Bills, a team that I thought was going to be awesome in 2019. They rewarded me with a playoff appearance, and in 2020, I think they have a chance to take that next step. So I'm excited to see what they do this season with some of the additions they've made throughout the offseason, including Stephon Diggs. So let's dive into their schedule and their record prediction. Before I give you my prediction for the Bills in 2020, make sure that you do spike the like button, subscribe to The Bottom Line View for more NFL videos just like this, and comment your opinion below. Let me know, Bills fans, what you think, who you think the tough games are on their schedule, what you think their record will be, and how far the Bills will go in 2020. So let's take a look at their schedule. And as you can see, I already have a couple of them filled out here. Let's start off with week number 3, because I have some of the games already filled out. They're going to beat the Jets at home week number 1. No question about it. Bills at home week 1. You guys are rowdy. The fans are too rowdy. I can't go against that fan base in week number 1 versus a rival. There's no chance you guys lose that game, in my opinion. Although it's a tough divisional game, and it will probably be a low-scoring affair. Week 2, you go to Miami. Now, my reasoning for this is that Miami is just a really hot climate in September. And for a team like the Bills, who are used to playing in a colder climate, it's going to be really hard for them to win that game. It's very difficult to play Miami early in the year, and this is also a divisional team. I think the Dolphins will pull that upset out. Now, week 3, you have the Rams at home. I think that the Bills are the better, superior team over the Rams. I don't think the Rams are very good this year. I like Sean McVay, but I don't love much else other than Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. They're a very high-loaded team in terms of their talent. There's a lot of big names, but underneath it, not a lot of depth. The Bills are a better roster throughout their 53. I think they're stronger on the line of scrimmage. I think Josh Allen might be the better quarterback than Jared Goff, and their defense is definitely superior. Plus, you're at home, so I'm going to take that for the Bills. Week 4, you play the Vegas Raiders. It's an interesting game, actually, because if the Raiders are able to dictate the line of scrimmage and able to run the ball like they like to, and John Gruden is really a good offensive coach, you guys need to give him credit. The Bills' defense, though, it's tough, and Sean McDermott is a great schemer. That's going to be a great head coach battle. I'm going to say that the Raiders win. I think this is kind of a bad matchup for the Bills, honestly, on paper. Although I could see the Bills, if they're able to explode offensively through the passing game, then they could win this, because I'm not quite sure about the Raiders secondary. But I think that offense versus defense matchup, the Raiders have a very underrated offensive line, and I think they could overpower the Bills' D-line, which was their weakness last year. Now, the Bills play Tennessee, which is another team that loves to run the rock, right? And it's another tough matchup based on that. Man, that's hard. That's a really hard one. Let me get back to that game, because I want to talk about week 6, because Kansas City comes to Buffalo. This is a game I think Buffalo is going to upset the Chiefs. I think this is a game where you could easily upset the Chiefs, because you're in Buffalo. It's week 6. I believe this is a Thursday nighter, if I'm not mistaken. And the Bills' defense is very good versus the pass. And I think they're athletic enough to contain and control Patrick Mahomes within the pocket. And they're very smart. And then offensively, you guys can run the ball, you can pass the ball. You have enough playmakers that will scare the Chiefs secondary. And I don't really think they have anyone out there that can cover Diggs or maybe even John Brown. So I think that's actually a really good matchup for Buffalo at that point in the schedule. And I think that's a very upsettable game. So I'm going to give the Bills the win there. Now, they play New England in week 8. We'll get to that Tennessee game in just a bit. I think they'll beat the New England Patriots at home. I think without Brady, it makes this team a lot more beatable and a lot more controllable, let's say. And although New England beat them and swept them last year and has typically had their number with Bill Belichick, I think McDermott's done a great job of really understanding Josh McDaniels' offense and has the upper hand on McDaniels more times than not. And that's hard to do. And I do think that Buffalo can do enough offensively. It's probably a low-scoring game, but I think Buffalo finds a way to pull it out. Then week 9, they play Seattle at home. I also think Buffalo wins this game. Seattle's not an easy opponent, but Seattle has to go across the country to play this game. It's going to be a big game for Canada because British Columbia, being Canadian, they love Seattle, and basically Eastern Canada loves Buffalo. So shout out to Canada there. But Buffalo, I think, is going to win at home for Seattle because, again, they're fast enough to contain Russell Wilson. They have a great secondary to contain those receivers. And I don't think Seattle's defense is great. I think you can definitely move the ball versus them at home. And again, Seattle across the country. Week 10, Arizona at home versus Buffalo. That's an interesting one because, you're on the road, but I don't think Arizona's like an amazing home field. And this is another matchup that I think Buffalo is actually, it's favorable to them in terms of matchups. So I'm going to go with Buffalo here. I think they're going to be able to go on the road and beat Arizona because they're a lot like Seattle, but I think they're a little bit more creative in the passing game with Cliff Kingsbury and what they can do with their receivers. Tre'Davious White, DeAndre Hopkins, great matchup there, but I'm going to go with Buffalo. Then they have the bye week in week 11, and then they play the Chargers in week 12 at home. I think the Bills are the better team, although the Chargers won't be an easy game because they have a really good, really good defense. And if the Chargers are able to get after Josh Allen, that will be a rough one. But I think the Bills are looking really good going to week 13 versus San Francisco, which is going to just be a tough game. I think Monday night in San Francisco, I'm going to take San Francisco because they can run the ball. Like I said, with these teams that can beat Buffalo, I think it's the teams that have a really strong offensive line, can really run the ball, control the pace of play, and they have a defensive line that can get after Allen. So I think San Francisco is a team that does that. Week 14, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a team that they beat last year, but that was with Duck Hodges. So can they beat Ben Roethlisberger if he is indeed healthy in week 14? This game, though, is in Buffalo, which the game last year was in Pittsburgh. I'm going to say Buffalo wins this game because I think Buffalo's just the better team, period, end of story. I think they also match up well in terms of taking away the passing game of Ben Roethlisberger, and I don't think Pittsburgh has the running attack that they used to have to be able to dictate Buffalo, but that's going to be a really close game, and I think that's going to be a big one in the AFC. Then you got Buffalo traveling to Denver in week 15. That's tough because Denver, Mile High, you guys know, very tough place to play, right? And Denver's a really talented team. I think that McDermott could come up with a game plan that would confuse Drew Lock, who's basically a rookie quarterback. But then at the same time, I think that on the flip side, I think Fangio could easily come up with a game plan that forces Josh Allen into some mistakes. That's a really close game. I think that, man, that's hard. I think I'm going to lean with you guys, but that's really tough. I could see Denver winning that one because Denver's a really talented team this year. I think they're a really good one. So, yeah, that might be a playoff matchup. That might be actually a playoff preview. Week 16, I think New England will beat Buffalo in Week 16 on Monday night at home because I think New England is not going to lose twice to the same opponent in the same season. That's very, very rare. And Buffalo just doesn't beat New England in New England. Like, it rarely ever happens. So I'm going to take New England there, and I still think New England's going to be a good enough team to pull off some of these wins. And then Week 5. Let's get to Week 5, all right? So Tennessee at home versus Buffalo. I think Tennessee... Like I said, I think this is a matchup that's very difficult for Buffalo. I think Tennessee wins that game. So ultimately, the Bills will be 10-6. I think 10-6 is good enough to win that division, and I have them 8-0 at home, which might be a little bit unrealistic, and 2-6 away. That's just the way it landed. This isn't going to be correct 100%, but that's kind of my sense. You kind of get the sense of how I feel these teams match up versus Buffalo. I don't think this is a crazy hard schedule, but it's certainly not an easy schedule, and it's certainly harder than last year. So don't compare it to last year in terms of the record, in terms of the schedule, because this is a lot harder. And I think the Bills will be a better team, and I think they'll be more playoff poised because they'll play teams like the Niners and New England twice, and they'll play Kansas City, and they'll play Seattle. So there's a lot of good opponents, good matchups, and games that I'm looking forward to on the schedule. But that's what I believe about the Bills. I think they're a playoff team. I think they make it at 10-6, and I think they ultimately win the AFC East at 10-6. Maybe they go 11-5, maybe even 12-4, but I don't think they're any worse than 9-7 or 8-8 this season. So there you go. Bills 2020 NFL record prediction, 10-6 for me. It's been Mitch, The Bottom Line View. If you enjoyed, Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to the channel. Peace.